Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD. This will actually be the last webinar we're going to have for a couple weeks. I'm going to take next week off. I see a lot of names here that I've seen before, but also many new people tonight, too. So to everybody, whether you've been here before or whether this is new for you, welcome here. I work in these webinars to answer your Lyme questions, and each one of these webinars is a little bit different because you create them with your questions. I will try to answer them to the best of my ability, and yes, I get stumped sometimes, so hopefully not too many times tonight, but every now and then I do with some of your questions. Throughout the webinar tonight, I will be showing you various pieces from the Treat Lyme book. Many of you know the Treat Lyme book is the Lyme disease information site that I maintain. And through that site, you would have signed up for the webinar tonight too. So I will show you some things that you might want to take a look at later after the webinar is over. I am doing a recording of the webinar tonight. So if you happen to miss some of the information and you want to hear it again tomorrow morning, usually by around 6:30 or so Seattle time, I will send out notification when I have the recording ready. You'll get an email about that, and so you'll be able to listen to it. If for some reason you do not get the email, take a look at the Treat Lyme book at www.treatlyme.net somewhere around 6:30, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, and click on the webinars tab on the navigation menu up on the top. And through that webinars page, there is a link that you can click to see the recordings, okay? So it will be up again, usually by around 6:30 or so. I have it ready to go. I have to go home and do a little bit of editing on it tonight, or I'll do that editing tomorrow morning before we can get it up and posted so that you can take a look at it. The way that you participate in these webinars, one way you can participate is by writing a question to me, okay? Now, just keep in mind that I get a lot of questions, so I may not get to your question, but I try to get through as many as I can. But you will see in the course of my answering your questions, sometimes I can get long-winded in giving you explanations for why things happen or what the best thing is to do, okay? But I still try to work through and get through as many as I can. The way that you write questions to me is over here, down there on the bottom at the right-hand side of the screen, there is a chat box. As you write your question, I ask that you do not hit the enter key until the question is complete. I realize with some of the really long questions, sometimes you have to fill up, after you fill up, go so far, you're going to have to hit the enter before you can complete the question. But each time that you hit enter, it creates multiple questions on my end, which gets to be hard for me to follow, because parts of your questions get mixed in with parts from everybody else, and then it gets to be difficult. During the live webinar tonight, so for those of you that are watching this live tonight, you will see that I actually post the questions as I'm answering them on your screen, okay? However, the recorded versions of the webinar, you will not be able to see that, and so I will be reading these questions as well tonight too, so the people that listen to the recorded version get to go ahead and participate by knowing what I'm talking about as I answer your question, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and take the first question here. All right, hello, Jackie. Let's see. Good evening, wonderful doctor. Thank you very much, Jackie. I appreciate the way you said that, or you wrote that, I should say. I want to let you know we all love you and appreciate your vast knowledge and gift of these informative webinars. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Let's see. I'm looking forward to private consults with you in the near future. In the meantime, before I'm able to start treatment, 23 years Lyme with Lyme, Babs, and Bart, I want to start my recovery. I think there are some other parts to your question here. Let me see if I can track them down. Let's see. All right. Been off yeast and sugar 7 weeks, but I feel it's still present. Rats, Jackie. I'm not quite sure. Hold on here, man. I'm not quite sure if I'm getting all parts of your question. Well, let's see. I got two more parts here. Let me post these up. I've been off yeast and sugar 7 weeks, but I feel it's still present in my body due to symptoms. Vitamin Store did not have a vegan yeast cleanse, so apple cider vinegar, 2 tablespoons with lemon and 8 ounces of water 2 to 3 times daily. 5 days in the stomach, slightly irritated, air hunger, entire back and neck hurt. 24/7. 100-degree fever day and night. Let's see. I stopped the cider. I read a CVIN can cause a herx in people with excess yeast sugar. Could it bring on a Lyme herx, or is more likely this? Let's see. Or is this more likely a germ? Would you recommend a continued cider? I hate swollen glands. All right. So I think what the crux of your question is that you feel badly, and in the middle of this, you've decided to start treating yeast. Okay, so things that make me wonder about yeast, and it's very common, is I'm designing a Lyme treatment that I'm going to make sure that a person doesn't have too many yeast living in the intestines at the beginning, and if they do, I want to treat for those yeast. All right, so there's a common thread between yeast and Lyme symptoms, and that is something called cytokines. So cytokines are chemicals that are made by your white blood cells when they see infection. So when they see yeast or when they see Lyme living in you, your white blood cells are going to make cytokines. And cytokines are good and bad. On the good side, they cause more white blood cells to be made. They draw those white blood cells to where the infection is, and they help those white blood cells work better. Okay. But in Lyme, and sometimes in too many yeast in the intestines, what happens is the immune system doesn't do a good job, but it tries harder and harder, and eventually it makes too many cytokines. And too many cytokines give you what we call Lyme symptoms, all right? So too many yeast symptoms look like too many Lyme symptoms, or they make your Lyme symptoms look worse because what they do is they contribute to all these excess cytokines. So Lyme symptoms and yeast symptoms are actually, a lot of them are excess cytokine symptoms, okay? All right, now, when you start killing Lyme or you start killing yeast, you can trigger something called a Herxheimer reaction. And what a Herxheimer reaction is the immune system sees the dead bug parts and sees toxins that get released from the inside and makes more cytokines, all right? So you get more cytokines, which make everything worse, all right? So I think that may be, Jackie, what's happening here. In terms of how to figure out if you have too many yeast, many of you are familiar with my Lyme disease treatment protocol. And on that treatment protocol, I have a questionnaire you can fill out that looks to see, do you have a lot of symptoms that suggest too many yeast? Do you have too many risk factors that suggest too many yeast? And if you score high enough, above 140, I'll show you where that is in a minute, then there's a good chance you have too many yeast and you should treat it, okay? But things that make me wonder about too many yeast in a person is increased sugar cravings, intestinal gasiness and bloating, in a woman, vaginal itching, vaginal discharge, sometimes difficulty swallowing because you actually get yeast up in your throat, and it can just make it hard to swallow because of that. Sometimes people with too many yeast get a lot of skin breakouts of acne or rashes, and that's because of a toxin getting released in the intestines that gets absorbed, gets into your bloodstream, and interacts with your skin, leading to that happen, okay? Now, I usually don't use apple cider vinegar to treat yeast. I wouldn't call it the strongest way to treat yeast, okay? What I prefer is either prescriptions or herbs. It looks like you're trying to do this on your own. So the herbs that I like are to get mixtures of herbs that would have things like pau d'arco, caprylic acid, rosemary oil, thyme oil, undolinic acid, garlic, sometimes grapefruit seed extract. You can find mixtures that have some or all of those in it, okay? And then use those, usually as 2 pills twice a day, and make sure you're on a good probiotic, getting about 50 to 100 billion cultures in too, okay? For your Herx reaction, Jackie, what I would look at doing is getting on curcumin. Curcumin is a component of turmeric. It is the active part of turmeric. It gets inside of white blood cells and limits cytokine production. I have people take a liposomal variety, which is a variety of curcumin that is microscopically wrapped in fat. That helps increase the absorption so that you get more of it in you, okay? Curcumin comes from turmeric, and even if you were to use it as a seasoning, you have to take a lot to get enough absorbed. So you got to get it microscopically wrapped in fat, okay? And I would do it as 500 to 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day, all right? So there's other things you could take for the Herx reaction too. So I'm going to do a screen share here. I'm going to show you all some references that you can look at here from the Treat Lyme book to get more information here in a second. So let me do that. All right, so here we are. This is my Lyme disease information website called the Treat Lyme book. As many of you know, the majority of this is a subscription-based site, which you read online. It's not a downloadable book. You read it online, and it's got basically about anything you might want to do for Lyme disease I have written about here in here. And I'm updating periodically. I come up with new articles, or I update existing articles, all right? The way to get through the book is to either click on the chapters tab here and look under the tab that fits your situation, or search. Click the search button here to search for something you might be interested in, all right? Now, earlier I said you can find this yeast screening tool by looking at my treatment guideline, which you'll find under the treatment protocol tab. This is available for free, all right? And basically, this is my treatment guideline. This is basically the essential steps anyone should do in their Lyme treatment to get well, all right? And it addresses things like getting sleep. You got to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep to restore your immune system and lower cytokines. I talk about being on a good paleo diet as the diet that I prefer. And the reason I prefer paleo diet is it supports mitochondria. Mitochondria are the energy factories in our cells. And also the reason I prefer a paleo diet is it's low in sugar. So you tend not to feed your yeast, okay? I talk about using curcumin to get your cytokines down. I talk about being on ashwagandha to help your body deal with stress. I talk about how to fix your hormones. But down here in this part 7 is the section about getting rid of yeast. And I give you recommendations about how to do that. And in here is the screening questionnaire I was just telling you about. You would click on this, fill it out, and if you score over 140, there's a good chance that treating yeast can make a difference for you, okay? All right, now, back to the chapters tab. I also have a whole chapter on yeast, all right? And in here, I talk about, besides using my questionnaire, what other ways would I go about figuring out if you have too many yeast? I also talk about the various herbs and prescriptions that I like to use to kill yeast, and that's this Kills Yeast, a brief guide, okay? So take a look at that for information. And then finally, if you are looking for products that treat yeast, I'm gonna just show you. So this is my Lyme disease supplement store, and this is where my patients go to get their supplements. In here, I have tried to find products, or I have found products that tend to not use artificial fillers that can hurt you in Lyme, and also are products that have companies that have done a great job of finding the most active ingredients, finding high quality active ingredients, okay? All right, now, the 2 products that I carry that I like for yeast, one is called Capri Plus. And this is a product that's got caprylic acid in it, some garlic in it, and also rosemary oil, okay? The other one that I like is a product called Phytostan. It's a product made by Integrative Therapeutics, and this has in it the Powdarco, the undeclinic acid, caprylic acid, rosemary oil, and some thyme oil as well too. All right, so these are some things for you to think about if you're tending to work herbally. All right, so let me go back here. All right, Jackie, I hope that covered some of the things you were hoping to cover with your question. And I look forward to working with you when you are able to work that out, okay? All right, good luck to you. And thank you for all those questions. Thank you for your kind words here as well, too. All right, I'm just cleaning out Jackie's questions here so I can make room for the next one. All right, this is from Janie. Hi, Janie. You're welcome, by the way. How could I approach my out-of-range references from a comprehensive metabolic panel? I have been off antibiotics since the beginning of 2015. I started experiencing Lyme flare after a vaccination. This doctor wants me to see my LLMD, and he has not ordered any additional tests to get a diagnosis. Okay, so Janie, it's going to be a little bit hard to answer your question because I would need to know which of the tests was out of range on the comprehensive metabolic profile. So everybody, comprehensive metabolic profile includes tests that look at your kidney function and blood tests that look at your liver function, okay? Now I can make a comment on a couple things. So Janie, if your AST or ALT, those are enzymes that are made by the liver, are elevated, that means liver inflammation. That liver inflammation sometimes can be even caused by Lyme, okay? And also if you're on antibiotics, sometimes the antibiotics you're on will inflame the liver and cause those to go elevated. I usually get concerned in somebody with Lyme and who is also on antibiotics if the ALT and the AST go more than 2 times the upper end of normal, okay? So for instance, some of the labs will report an AST range of normal being 0 to 50. So I'm okay if that ALT stays at 100 or less during my Lyme treatments, for instance, okay? But I'm sorry, I can't really answer more because I don't know what is abnormal in your test, okay? So good luck to you, Janie. Hello, Linda. Let's see. I'm taking gabapentin and Cymbalta for pain and depression. Is it okay to take your Lyme protocol along with these? What about the lithium you talk about? Can I take it also? So the answer, Linda, is yes. The successful treatment recipe, which is my Lyme disease guideline that you find under the treatment protocol tab, I was just showing you that. Again, getting rid of Lyme is just not about poisoning your germs. You got to support your adrenals. You got to get sleep. You got to lower cytokines. You got to deal with too many yeast if they're in the intestines because they kick up cytokines. All those steps that I lay out in the successful treatment recipe are very compatible with the gabapentin and Cymbalta, okay? In addition, lithium that Linda's talking about, lithium, everyone, is a medicine, but it also is a supplement, all right? So when we use it as a pharmaceutical prescription, it comes as a 300 milligram pill, and we use it in ranges of about 600 to 900 milligrams to manage manic depression or bipolar illness, okay? We can use it, though, as a supplement at 5 milligrams 3 times a day. All right, do you see here? That's a big difference. Okay, so when we use it psychiatrically, we use it at 600 to 900 milligrams. But when we use it herbally and in a supportive fashion, we use it as something called lithium orotate at 5 milligrams 3 times a day or 15 milligrams a day. All right, so what does lithium do? Well, lithium is great for helping improve thinking. What has been shown to do in studies is it improves nerve signaling, the ability for nerves to talk back and forth with each other. It also can help calm an agitated nervous system. So if I've got somebody with tremors or shaking or feelings of internal buzzing, I may sometimes use the lithium as well too. And yes, it would be okay to mix at this level, at a supportive level, at 5 milligrams 3 times a day with your gabapentin and your Cymbalta. Okay? All right. If anyone wants to read more about the information I have on lithium, take a look here at the Treat Lyme book. Let me go back here. And actually, I'm going to try to go back here. There we are. Go to the Treat Lyme book. And there is, well, I'll just show you. I'm going to do it as a search here. If you were just to Google lithium or search for lithium here, so there's a whole article I've written on lithium orotate, okay, and the benefits that you get with your the nervous system as well too. All right, okay. Let me go back here. All right, thank you, Linda. Good luck to you. Hello, Brenda. Let's see. I'm sincerely grateful for these webinars. Thank you, Brenda. Have you heard of ivermectin for Lyme disease? Also, what do you recommend to chelate mercury? So ivermectin can be used to help remove parasites that sometimes people get in Lyme. Some of my colleagues will also try it for a skin condition that you sometimes get in Lyme called Morgellons. Morgellons is a condition where you get a bunch of sores on the skin that seems to be associated with immune suppression, and sometimes being on ivermectin can help with that too. I would not look at it as a good agent actually to help kill the Lyme itself. So just so you know that, okay. What do I use to chelate mercury? I like doing oral chelation. I prefer doing oral chelation over IV because it's less expensive than IV, number one. And as long as you've got a functioning gut, most people can do oral chelation and keeps you from having to go spend the money at the doctor's office, basically. The agent that I like, you can use either DMSA, that's my favorite, or you could use something called EDTA too, all right? Those would be the two things I might consider using for mercury. My preference would be the DMSA, which is a prescription compounded medicine. The EDTA is as well too. All right, thank you for that question, Brenda. Hello, Eric. Hi, Dr. Ross. How do I support the liver and mitochondria while taking Mepron? I can't have milk thistle and CoQ10 while on Mepron. So in terms of CoQ10, so CoQ10, everyone, will make it so Mepron doesn't work, all right? And Mepron is a medication we use to treat babesia. Eric, I'm not sure why they're telling you can't use the milk thistle. That one I'm not quite clear about, okay? But if you are looking for something, and maybe there's something I need to learn about here too. As I said, I do get stumped every now and then in these webinars, or sometimes I learn things from your questions as well too. So I'll have to look into that one a little bit more. But generally, I don't use milk thistle in my practice anyhow. And the reason I don't use milk thistle is it may create more toxicity issues. All right, and here's why. So in the liver is the organ that does detox of fat-based chemicals, all right? And we recognize two phases to liver detox. And this is pretty simple. There's phase 1 detox and phase 2 detox, okay? So chemicals that are fat-based toxins go through phase 1 detox, and they come out actually more toxic than when they went into phase 1 detox, okay? Then they go into phase 2 detox, and in phase 2 detox, they're turned into a water-based chemical, which then eventually gets moved out into your intestines, mixes in with your poop, and you poop it out. Okay, that's phase 1, phase 2. Now, many people have blockages in phase 2 detox. Milk thistle is a strong supporter of phase 1 detox, all right? So if you put somebody on milk thistle, and a lot of people, a big majority of people have blockages in phase 2, and you don't unblock phase 2, then what happens is you get more toxins created, okay? Because things go into phase 1, come out more toxic before they go into phase 2, all right? Now, what supports phase 2 better and also can help with phase 1 is glutathione, all right? So that's what I like to work with. If I'm going to work when supporting liver, when somebody is under treatment and I don't want to use milk thistle, then I like using glutathione. I like using a liposomal variety of glutathione, which is glutathione that is microscopically wrapped in fat. And as many of you know, the product I like using for that is something called Tri-Fortify Orange by Research Nutritionals. They recently came out with something called Tri-Fortify Watermelon. So for those of you that were having trouble tolerating the Tri-Fortify Orange, there is a watermelon. We actually have it available here now. I just got to get it posted up on the store. I haven't put it up there yet. But Eric, I would do a Tri-Fortify Orange or a Tri-Fortify Watermelon or some company's version of a liposomal glutathione that's microscopically wrapped in fat to get it absorbed, okay? I would do 400 to 500 milligrams one time a day. If you can't do the glutathione, you can't tolerate it or you can't get it, another way to support phase 2 detox is to be on N-acetylcysteine and alpha lipoic acid those two together lead to cells producing more glutathione on their own, okay? Now, the N-acetylcysteine you would do is 500 milligrams 3 times a day. The alpha lipoic acid either as 200 milligrams 3 times a day, or you would do it as 350 milligrams twice a day. Soroil, which is a supplement company, makes it as a 350 milligram pill too, okay? All right, so those are some thoughts for you, and good luck to you, Eric. Thank you for that question. Hello, Sarah. I find that curcumin Meriva for joint pain doesn't seem to work for me. Advil does. Is there any other natural substance that might help? Thank you for sharing your expertise and experience. Yeah. So, Sarah, thank you. So, yeah, there's a couple things you could do. So, Meriva, again, works by decreasing cytokine production inside your white blood cells. And it also can limit, so that's one group of inflammatory chemicals. There's another group of inflammatory chemicals, which are prostaglandin-based inflammatory chemicals. And working with curcumin can help with that, but probably not as well as what the traditional Advils or Aleve can do, okay? All right, they're better. They don't do anything for cytokines, but they do work on prostaglandin inflammation, okay? All right, now, something else you could try would be a chemical called quercetin. Quercetin is a bioflavonoid. It's a chemical found in the skin of colorful fruits and vegetables. 250 milligram pill usually is what it's going to come as, and you want to do 500 milligrams 3 times a day. It limits prostaglandin and it limits cytokines, okay? In addition, something else that can be good to add on top of that is brown seaweed extract, also known as Ecklonia cava. That's Ecklonia, and then cava, C-A-V-A. And I would do a couple pills of that. Boy, I'm just blanking on the strength of it right now. Well, we'll look it up here in a minute. I would do a couple pills on that 2 times a day, all right? Ecklonia cava, which is sold as a product called Fiber Boost, is how it's sold. Ecklonia cava has got some good rheumatology studies showing that it can help in a regular inflammatory arthritis. So not Lyme arthritis, but regular inflammatory arthritis. And regular inflammatory arthritis is a prostaglandin inflammation condition, okay? All right, so let me just go ahead. I'm blanking on the milligrams, so I want to go look at the product that I use here so that I can find the milligrams to advise you on that. So let me go back here and do a quick screen share here. Okay, so I'm going back to supplement store. The product I use for Ecklonia cava is called Fiber Boost, made by a company called Allergy Research. And the strength of the Ecklonia cava on this is 1,200 milligrams in 3 capsules. So that would be 800 milligrams. I usually have people do 2 capsules twice a day, which is 800 milligrams of the Ecklonia cava. Okay, all right. Go back here again. Okay, all right, Sarah, I hope that helps you. So quercetin and Fiber Boost, okay, which is Ecklonia cava. Good luck to you. All right, hello, Jessica. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Oh, sorry about that. Hold on, everyone. I just swallowed wrong. Well, that'll clear. I may be coughing just a little bit here, but okay, let's see. What are your thoughts on stem cell therapy to repair the immune system and get rid of infections? I think stem cell therapy, I'm sorry, it'll clear eventually. You may just have to bear with me coughing here for a minute. But stem cell therapy, I think, is more of a last resort effort if many other things are not working. And I don't, the people that I have seen that go and have it done, I think get mixed results. I'm seeing it more maybe 10% of the time. I've never seen good studies about its effectiveness, but it's very expensive, and also it is more of a last resort effort. Okay, so those are my thoughts on it. All right, I don't have extensive experience working with it, though. I'll let you know that. Okay, all right. Thanks, Jessica. Hi, Dr. Ross. What would you do for Raynaud's syndrome? Thank you for these webinars. You're welcome, Victoria. So, Raynaud's syndrome, everyone, is a condition where your blood vessels in your fingers and your toes goes into spasm, limiting blood flow into your digits, which gives you cold fingers and painful fingers. Sometimes they'll turn blue, sometimes they'll turn white. And the spasming of the blood vessels can be triggered by either cold or heat. It's temperature changes, okay? So there's some people that even in the summertime, when they walk out of their air-conditioned home outside, it's going outside that triggers the Raynaud's, although typically people tend to have more problems when they go into cold, okay? All right, so what can cause that? Well, it's seen in infectious states. You can see it being caused by Lyme, for instance. It also can occur in autoimmune illnesses, and sometimes it just occurs for any reason at all, okay? From a prescription medicine standpoint, we can use a class of blood pressure medicines called the calcium channel blockers to help decrease that spasm of the blood vessels, okay? So it would require prescription. So for instance, a medicine called Norvasc or Procardia, those medicines are ones that you could use, okay? Those are prescription medicines. Another possibility, though, is to try to promote more blood flow into the areas that are spasming. And something that can help with that is actually ginkgo biloba, and something else called lumbrokinase, okay? So ginkgo biloba is a chemical, many of you may be aware of it, is helping people with Alzheimer's disease and thinking, all right? And what it does in that situation is it gets inside your red blood cells and makes them more flexible so that they can flow more easily into really, really narrow blood vessels, which means deeper into the brain, okay? But that means they can flow more easily in a blood vessel that's spasming and tightening down. They can squeeze through still, okay? So ginkgo biloba, 80 milligrams, 2 times a day. The other thing I would do is to try to decrease sticky blood. Let me tell you what I mean by that word, sticky blood. So when you have chronic infections, many people will have, their immune system will respond by making more of blood clotting proteins called fibrin or fibrinogen, which becomes something called fibrin, all right? And those extra proteins are in your blood, not causing blood clots, but they increase the thickness of the blood. And so it makes it harder for that blood to flow into narrowed vessels too. So lumbrokinase breaks down those proteins. And lumbrokinase is a group of enzymes that come from the skin of earthworms. I love this illness. I mean, some of the things we have to do are just kind of crazy. So yes, we resort to earthworms, all right? So lumbrokinase, 20 milligrams twice a day. You want to take it on an empty stomach by 1 hour. So nothing 1 hour before in your stomach. That means medicine, supplements, and food through 1 hour after you have the lumbrokinase. And you can also try the ginkgo biloba, 80 milligrams twice a day, okay? Now, if you've tried to find the lumbrokinase on my Lyme disease store, you're going to find we have it as a product called Baluki, and you're going to find it. We also have it just as Allergy Research makes lumbrokinase. Read the labels carefully. It's confusing, okay? If you just look at the label, it looks like it's 40 milligram pill, but it's not. The labels say that a serving size is 2 pills, which equals 40 milligrams. You only want to do 1 pill, 20 milligrams, twice a day, okay? All right. All right, Victoria, thank you very much, and good luck to you, okay? Hello, Janie. Let's see. Any follow-up to pinpoint a diagnosis? Here are the out-of-range results. I think this is the wandering part of your question that I couldn't find earlier, Janie. Here are the out-of-range results. You have told me the out-of-range results. Total protein 8.7, globulin 4.1, alkaline phosphatase 294, AST 55, ALT 70, over double. Red blood cell count 5.17. Let's see. In 2014, my MRI showed over 40 brain lesions. All right. So the brain lesions would suggest Lyme being present there, Janie. You know, so the just so you know, the ALT and AST are elevated. That could be caused by Lyme. But the one thing you want to do that your doctor should do, even your primary care could do this without going to your Lyme literate medical doctor, is somebody also ought to do testing to make sure that this isn't a chronic hepatitis virus infection like hepatitis B or hepatitis C. Somebody should go ahead and do that testing for you, and your primary care doctor can do that, okay? The increased total protein may be because you're making a lot of extra antibodies, or you've got sticky blood that I was just telling you about earlier. All right. But Janie, I'm not sure if you can't get in to see your Lyme literate medical doctor to help you design a treatment plan here, you might consider, I'd be glad to look at options with you. And to do that, you could take a look at my the treat Lyme book. I'm trying to get back there. Let's see here. So at the Treat Lyme book, that's where I am right now. You're going to see there's a tab up here at the top called Online Consult. Click here to read about the way that I can work with people over the internet to do visits. It's called a one-to-one medical consult. If you're interested, fill out the form here, but read all the way down here to the bottom so you understand how this works, okay? But in the online consult, I can spend 30 minutes to an hour with you, depending on how much time you want. But if you're going to want me to help really develop a plan, book an hour appointment, okay? And during it, I can tell you what I think is going on, steps to take, herbs to take, supplements to take, even prescription medicines to take. Just realize that in the consult, because I don't examine you, my medical board restricts my ability to prescribe if I don't examine a person, okay? So I wouldn't be able to prescribe for you, but I could give you ideas that you could even take to your Lyme literate medical doctor or your primary care doctor and see if they could do it for you. And I can't order tests, but I can recommend, and then you can see if they can do it too, all right? I write up the visit like it's a medical visit in a medical visit note, and it's something you can share with your healthcare providers, all right? So anyone, if you're looking for answers and things that you could take back to your primary care provider, or even your Lyme literate medical doctor, feel free to initiate one of those visits with me. I'm more than glad to help people with those, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Janie. Hello, Sarah. Hi, Dr. Ross. I can't seem to tolerate even a drop of Cemento. Is there a comparable substitute? Are Banderol and Cemento safe to take along with all supplements? Thanks for all you do. So, Sarah, yeah, as far as what I've seen, they're safe to take with all supplements. If you're really, sometimes what I will do, if I've got people that can't even do a drop, and it happens every now and then, okay? So, for instance, I've got a woman that sees me for mold toxicity issues as well as Lyme, that when we started her Banderol and Cemento, we could only do one drop a day. I've got another person that now is doing fairly well. That was somebody I worked with on the one-to-one consults over the internet, Canadian woman that when we first started treating, I think we were doing like a quarter drop of this one time a day. And the most I think I've ever been able to get her up to is 5 drops twice a day, but she's almost 100% well now, okay? So the one thing I want you to understand, I want everyone to understand, although I'd say that with the Banderol Cemento, and those of you that are new to my webinars, Banderol Cemento are the 2 herbs that work on Lyme that work as well as prescription antibiotics. Cemento is cat's claw. Banderol is a toba bark extract. about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a researcher that's running one of the best Lyme disease research labs in the country. Her name is Eva Choppy. Eva was able to show in experiments that these two herbs together kill all 3 forms of the Lyme germ. In addition, remove 100% of biofilm, all right? These were Petri dish experiments. Now, based on those experiments, I started seeing, well, I wonder how well it would work with my patients in my practice. And I find that they work about 85 to 90% of the time, which is good as any prescription antibiotic protocol, all right? Now, the goal that I try to get people to with Banderol Cemento is 30 drops twice a day. But sometimes I can't get people there, and that's okay. That's okay. You don't have to make the goal of getting to 30. I mean, if you can't get there, you can't get there. If you can get there, great, all right? All right, what we're really interested in is, are you killing your Lyme germs, okay? And what determines whether you can kill a germ is how much of the drug or herb you get into the bloodstream. And what determines your levels in your bloodstream are 2 things: how much you take and how quickly you're able to detox them out, how quickly your liver is able to clean them out, okay? And in some people, there are severely impaired detox mechanisms that make it so they can't remove Banderol or Cemento quickly, all right? So, Sarah, what I have done in situations like this is I will sometimes have a person take a drop of Banderol or a drop of Cemento, put it in 4 ounces of water, and then take that and divide it into 2 ounces, and then take those and divide them into 1 ounces, okay? So that 1 drop that is put into 4 ounces of water, if you have just an ounce of water, you now have a 1/4 drop of the herb that you're taking. And what I would do is dilute the drop as many times as you need to until you find an amount you can tolerate. That might be 1/8 of a drop, or it might be 1/4 of a drop. So I would just drop down until you find a level you can tolerate. Can you get well this way? Yes, that's what I was trying to tell you earlier, is that woman that I worked with in Canada, we had to stay, I think it was 1/4 drop is where we started doing it this way. And slowly over a 2-year period of time, she got back. She's about 80, 90% well now, okay? And she was really, really sick, okay? So yes, you can. And sometimes you just got to start really, really, really slow. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Sarah. Hello, Ginny. A year ago, October showed only high antibodies, Lyme. Had symptoms, so was treated with antibiotics 3.5 months plus supplements. Felt almost totally well at 6 months. This, well, let me see. I think there is a wandering part to your question here, Jenny. Well, there's a second part, but I think I see your third part. Let me throw that up. So this is the other part I can find, Jenny, to see if it helps. Thanks for your help. Had eye spot test negative. This fall symptoms are back. Another eye spot test negative. Doctor says I don't have Lyme. Can I use your herbal formulas? Okay, so first of all, I know there's a second part that I can't find. This is why I'm saying, everyone, try to write your questions really brief so they all fit in that box. And remember, if you hit enter more than once, I sometimes cannot find all parts to your question. I'm afraid that may be what's happening here with Jenny's question, all right? So first of all, when you have Lyme that relapses, there is not a good test to prove that you are relapsing from Lyme, all right? So I base my decisions about whether somebody's relapsing based on what the symptoms tell me, okay? The problem with an eye spot test and even the Western blot test is that because both the eye spot and the Western blot are measuring your body's immune system ability to attack the germ. The Western blot looks to see, does your immune system make antibodies, which are proteins that attach to the germ and act like a big signaling tower to the rest of the immune system to come gobble it up, okay? The eye spot test looks to see, do you have a type of white blood cell called a T cell that has attacked Lyme germs before, that shows that it's responded to Lyme disease before, okay? All right, now, if you have severe immune suppression from your Lyme being active, you may not be able to mount T cells that attack, all right? So that T cell I-spot test may be negative, or you may not be able to make antibodies, all right? So negative test may mean that you're just having a lot of immune suppression going on, and you can't show the test, okay? All right, so basically, if you have a lot of symptoms of Lyme, 2 steps I'd have you do. Number 1, make sure it's not yeast first, all right? So in my experience, 80% of the time that somebody has a relapse, it is because as a result of having been treated, over time, slowly, people develop too many yeasts in their intestines. And too many yeast in the intestines, as I mentioned earlier tonight, the first question tonight, too many yeast trigger cytokines. And as all of you know that listen to my webinars, Lyme symptoms, and this is what I say, Lyme symptoms are actually too many cytokine symptoms, right? All right. So now if you have yeast in your intestines and the immune system sees them and makes cytokines, it can look like your Lyme got worse, when in fact, maybe it's you just got too many yeast in your intestines, okay? So step 1, figure out if you have too many yeast. If you do, treat it. And usually within about 3 to 4 weeks, all of those symptoms will get better. All right. If it is not too many yeast, then you should start treating Lyme, and you can follow the herbal formula, my Lyme disease treatment protocol for that, okay? Now, how do you know if you have too many yeast? Well, let's look and see. I'm going to go back and show you again how you figure that out. All right, so let me do a quick screen share here. All right, so in the middle of treatment, when you've been treated, that in my treatment protocol, as I showed you earlier, there is the questionnaire you can fill out if you have too many yeast. However, if during your treatment you've been treated for yeast, that questionnaire is not always accurate, okay? So what I'd have you take a look at is look at my chapter called Yeast here. And in here, and I showed you this earlier, take a look at this article called A Silent Problem, Do You Have Yeast? In here I explain how to figure out if you have too many yeast that could be even triggering a relapse or symptoms of relapse, okay? All right, so take a look at that, okay? All right, good luck to you with that too. Let me go back here. All right, thanks Jenny for that question. Good luck to you. All right, let's see here. Hello, CJ. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thanks for all you do. You're welcome. Can you explain in general terms how the 23andMe test works? Is there a book or website that is good? My Lyme brain is having a hard time comprehending. All right. So 23andMe, everyone, is a genetic test. It's a test that looks to see, do you have defects in various genes, okay? And many times in Lyme, I'll use it to look to see if you might have genetic problems leading to a detoxification problem called MTHFR, which stands for methyl-tetrahydrofolate reductase. It's an enzyme that's responsible for taking folate of your diet and activating it in something called 5-methyl-tetrahydrofolate. And that activated folate is needed to make downstream many chemical reactions later glutathione, which is your master detox formula, okay? Now that is the only real reason I use a 23andMe at this time, okay? So what happens is you order a 23andMe test by going to 23andMe, okay? And then after, they're gonna give you raw data, but you need something to interpret that raw data to tell you what's wrong, all right? And so what I like using, I have my patients take their 23andMe results to a website called geneticgenie.org. That's GENETIC, Genie, GENIE.org, all right? And you take that data, you upload it to Genetic Genie, and they run an analysis of it, and they'll tell you what the genetic defects are that you have, and even make suggestions of things that you might want to do for it, okay? So that's one way to do it, all right? All right, there's another, a general physician that has made himself into somewhat of an expert on all the nuances of this is a physician, a naturopathic doctor named Ben Lynch. and that's Lynch. And you might take a look at some of his information sites that he has about methylation and the MTHFR problem too. Okay. All right. So those would be my suggestions for you. Okay. All right. Thanks, CJ. Good luck to you. Hello, Lisa. Let's see. How does one decide which protocol is most suitable for oneself before investing 6 to 9 months in your protocol? Buhner, Zhang, Cowden, or Klinghardt? I have subscribed to your ebook and love it. All right, Lisa, that's a good question. So what I can tell you is this, and I'm biased, but I don't think that the Buhner protocol, for most people, I think if you were able to do everything in the Buhner protocol, and that's a lot of herb. Buhner is an expensive protocol. It might work, but it's very hard to do, and most people tend not to do, are not able to afford to do all that stuff that he has you doing. Okay, so I think Buhner, because of expense, becomes hard to do, and therefore people can't follow it. All right, Zhang and Cowden. The only thing that I think really works well out of Cowden is the Banderol Cemento. I find people get benefit from it about 40% of the time. I think you will do better using all of the steps that I outlined in the successful treatment recipe, okay? The reason that Cowden fails, I think, is that Cowden doesn't do a lot of work on cytokines. Cowden's treatment of yeast, if you have it, or helping you figure out yeast, he doesn't really address yeast. He doesn't address thyroid or adrenal problems that well. He doesn't really do much with his protocol to deal with sleep. His protocol falls short. It doesn't deal with all the aspects that you need to do. Klinghardt, basically, boy, it's hard to say what you mean by the Klinghardt protocol because there's many facets of what people call the Klinghardt protocol. I think Dietrich is a brilliant doctor. Dietrich Klinghardt's a brilliant doctor. I think his protocol is not easy to implement on your own. And really, for it to work effectively, you would need somebody that can do the type of testing that he does in his own practice called ART testing. It's a type of kinesiology. I just think it's impractical to do on your own, actually, all right? So that leaves you with Buhner. Buhner does address most of the issues that I address in the successful treatment recipe. I think the successful treatment recipe is easier to implement and is not necessarily a one-size-fits-all the way that Buhner can be, okay? So those would be just my thoughts on that, all right? All right. And good luck to you as you make your decision on this too. Thank you for that question too. All right. Oh, I already answered that earlier. Let me get rid of that. Hello, Jacqueline. Hold on here just a minute. Hello, Dr. Marty. I asked you a couple questions last week regarding Lyme and trigeminal neuralgia. You suggested for me to try it to heal the trigeminal nerves as well. Would you please tell me again specifically what I need to take to help facilitate some healing in the nerves? Thank you, Jacqueline. All right, Jacqueline, I'm going to show you something in case you don't get it again, okay? And because it's all in this one article, all right? So I'm going to do a screen share here. All right, so Jacqueline, take a look at, go into the Treat Lyme book. That's where I am right now, treatlyme.net. Go to the chapters tab, come over here to the brain and nerves chapter. Take a look at my article called Neuropathy Repair, Heal That Tingling, Numbness, and Pain. This is the chapter, this is the article that pertains to you, okay? So, and it's all written down here so that if you happen to miss what I'm about ready to say, take a look at this article. Yes, subscribe to the Treat Lyme book. Pay $2.99 a month or pay nearly $30 for lifetime membership. But subscribe. There's a lot of good information here so that you don't even have to wait for the webinars. to figure out what to do, okay? All right. And keep in mind, everyone, you subscribe to these articles, you're helping support the work that I do here in these webinars as well, too, okay? All right, so let me go back here. Okay, so Jacqueline, take a look at that article, okay? All right, but here's the steps. Number one, you want to repair the nerve cell membrane as well as the energy factories in the nerve cells called mitochondria. And to do that, you want to get on a substance called NT factor energy. It's made by a company called Research Nutritionals. 2 pills 3 times a day for 2 months, then decrease it to 1 pill 3 times a day for 4 months, okay? That rebuilds the nerve cell membrane, that rebuilds the mitochondria so the nerves have enough energy to heal, all right? Number 2, coenzyme Q10, also called CoQ10, helps transport electrons in the nerves and also in the mitochondria, so they work better, all right? 400 milligrams 2 times a day. Number 3, be on glutathione or something called N-acetylcysteine that is turned into glutathione. If you're going to do the glutathione, I like Trifortify Orange. I mentioned earlier tonight, 5 milliliters 1 time a day. Or if you're going to do the N-acetylcysteine, which I like using a product by Thorne called Cystoplus. It's CYSTEPLUS, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. Okay, all right. And then finally, if you are a person that does not eat red meat at least once a week, consider getting on acetyl L-carnitine. That's ACETYL, separate, then a space, and then the letter L, and then another space, carnitine, CARNITINE. It's the transport vehicle that carries fat to the inside of your mitochondria to create cell energy, okay? And if you are a vegetarian, you don't get enough of it, all right? So that's 500 milligrams twice a day for 1 month, then decrease it to 1 pill daily after that, all right? And then finally, decrease inflammation of the nerves. And you want to do that by being on curcumin that I've mentioned a number of times tonight, 500 milligrams 3 times a day, okay? All right. Now, if you're wondering where to get all this stuff, what products do I recommend for all of it, I'm just going to do a quick screen share again. Most of these that I'm using in my practice these days are actually by a company called Research Nutritionals. I think Research Nutritionals is running one of the better Lyme disease shops these days in terms of coming up with really good quality supplements, all right? So in terms of, this is the Research Nutritionals page that I have. I carry all of their products now, although I still have to add the new Trifortify Orange here, new Trifortify Watermelon here, okay? So what you want to do is go over here, start the NT Factor, which is this product here, okay? 2 pills 3 times a day, all right? You also want to get on the Trifortify Orange that I was telling you about. This is your glutathione, 5 milliliters 1 time a day. And then you also want to get on coenzyme Q10, 400 milligrams twice a day, all right? And then the acetyl L-carnitine, I carry a product for that made by a company called Thorne. That is this product here called Carnitil. All right. The Bariva 500, which is the curcumin product I recommend, is also by Thorne. And then the the Cystoplus, which is N-acetylcysteine, is this product here, okay? So I usually, as you know, often in these webinars, I will show you at least once where to find the supplements I recommend, but Jacqueline, I wanted to actually show you the actual products I use so that if that helps streamline this so you can get started so you know what I'm talking about, okay? But again, if you've missed a lot of this, read the article that I showed you to begin with, okay? All right, good luck to you. right, let's see here. Hello, Kristen. Do you ever encounter unconquerable candida? If so, do you feel that herbal protocols can successfully eradicate Bartonella? So, candida in some can be really complicated to treat. And there are a number of things you can do to get rid of it still, okay? So take a look. I've showed you a number of times my article called Kills Yeast, a Brief Guide. In there, I tell you what I do for unconquerable candida, because it can be conquered. And there are two things that if everything else isn't working that you ought to consider as a germ killer. Either compounded amphotericin, which is a prescription, which works about 95% of the time, or an insecticide, an experimental insecticide called lufeneron that blocks something called a chitin synthesis inhibitor that blocks the ability for yeast to repair their covering, okay? And it's found in insecticides, okay? But you can find it. There's a Canadian source. It appears there are no human safety studies. My experience of using it in hundreds of people is it is safe. There are chimpanzee safety studies that show that it works, okay? And so I have an article about lufeneron too, and I tell you in that article where you can find it as well too. In addition to either lufeneron or amphotericin, as I recommend in the article, the other thing you want to do is get on a paleo diet, which basically means you're going to basically stop grains, beans, and legumes because they're feeding yeast as well too. Also, get on a soil-based probiotic, and for that I like a product called Prescript Assist Pro, and be on regular probiotics, regular bacteria, which would be something that has bifidobacterium and lactobacillus acidophilus in it too, okay? Those are the things I do for quote-unquote unconquerable yeast, all right? Where are you going to find all this stuff? Let me just do a quick screen share for you again. All right, so back in the Treat Lyme book, again, take a look at my chapter called Yeast. Here's the article about lufeneron, which is the quote-unquote experimental treatment to get rid of yeast, okay? And then here's the article about Kills Yeast, a Brief Guide, where I describe the amphotericin and how to use the lufeneron as well too, all right? All right, let me go back here again. Okay, let's see. Do I feel that herbal protocols can successfully eradicate Bartonella? Yes, take a look at the article I have about antibiotics and herbs to kill Bartonella. And that's the article is called Kills Bartonella, okay? Kills Bartonella Brief Guide. Look in the Treat Lyme book. Go to the chapters tab. You'll see under there's a chapter called Infection Treatment Plans. Look there for the article called Kills Bartonella Brief Guide. In there, I break my article down into three parts. There are what I call Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 treatments. Tier 1 are the strongest, okay? They are 2 antibiotic or 3 prescription antibiotic protocols that will work 80 to 85% of the time, all right? Tier 2 is 2 drugs that work about 75 to 80% of the time. Tier 3 are the herbal protocols that work about 70 to 75% of the time. So that means that, yes, you can get rid of Bartonella 70 to 75% of the time using a couple of herbs that I recommend in that article, all right? The other thing you got to do with Bartonella is make sure that you are doing everything else I recommend in the successful treatment recipe, like get sleep, lower cytokines, get rid of your yeast, etc. Follow all of those other steps because they support your immune system, and you're not getting rid of Bartonella unless you support your immune system with the basic steps I outline in the successful treatment recipe. In other words, the successful treatment recipe, the whole thing, correcting hormones, getting sleep, lowering cytokines, etc., is designed to boost your immune system, okay? You got to do all those steps as well, too. All right. Good luck to you, Kristen. Hello, Colleen. Let's see. How do you bear the treatment herxing? I've read herxing too much can damage your tissues. Is this true? And how would we tolerate the treatment when herxing is so extreme? So, Herxing, as everyone knows, or not everyone knows, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. So herxing, everyone, that's what I meant to say. Herxing, everyone, is the reaction you get from killing Lyme, all right? And what happens in a Herx reaction, as I mentioned earlier tonight, is the immune system sees your dead bug parts and the toxins and makes more of a group of inflammatory chemicals called cytokines, all right? Now, cytokines are already overproduced in Lyme. So cytokines are good and bad. Again, they're made by white blood cells to turn on the immune system whenever they see any kind of germ, Lyme, yeast, any kind of germ, okay? And in the Lyme, and sometimes in too many yeast, the immune system doesn't do a good job getting rid of them. So it tries harder and harder and eventually makes too many cytokines. Most of your Lyme disease symptoms are actually too many cytokine symptoms, okay? Now, when you start killing Lyme, the immune system sees the dead bug parts, sees the toxins that get released from the inside, and makes more cytokines, all right? Now, the problem with too many cytokines is, yeah, they make you feel bad. And sometimes if it's really severe, you can get into tissue injury, although that's really rare. The biggest problem, though, is that if you really herx too severely, you're suppressing the immune system. All those excess cytokines, although the immune system makes cytokines to turn itself on, in excess, they actually suppress the immune system too, all right? So what's too much? That's kind of hard to say. I accept that people are going to get knocked down a little bit, but when they get knocked down a lot, I like to try to do things to limit that herx and sometimes even slow it down, all right? So what can you do for Herxheimer reactions and what can you do to limit cytokines? I've got 2 articles that I'm going to have you take a look at because I give you the steps. The big thing is be on curcumin. And if you are herxing, be on at least 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day, okay? There are additional things you can add if that's not working for you. And rather, because I've really done a nice job laying it out in the article, and because we're already at about 6:10 right now, so we're going to be running out of time, I'm going to show you where you can take a look, okay? All right, so I'm going to do a quick screen share here. All right, and I think, let me just see. I'm trying to remember if this is one of my free reads or not. Nope, it is not. Okay, so what you want to do, take a look at in the chapters tab, look under Herxheimer and cytokines, okay? And then there's one of two articles you can look at. You can either look at this one called Control Cytokines, a Guide to Fix Lyme Symptoms and the Immune System, or take a look at my article called Herxheimer Die-Off Reaction, Inflammation Run Amok, where I tell you the various things you can do to control the situation so it doesn't get out of hand, okay? That's where I would wind up looking. Again, I'm not going to answer your question outright right now because, other than saying get on curcumin, because they're easy to follow articles, and I want to get to some more of the questions here too. All right, good luck to you, Colleen. Hello, Karen. See, I just found your book and excited about this webinar opportunity. Yahoo! I love your enthusiasm, Karen. I am sensitive to antimalarials and haven't been able to tolerate Plaquenil or Mepron. The first cause ototoxic side effects, and the second cause major head pressure, dizziness, headache, and decreased pain. Brain function, I think is what you wrote here. All right, Karen, I hope that there is a second part here. There is a second part. Let's see, what would you do next? All right, so let me go back to your first part. So bear with me here a minute. I will answer it. All right. Okay, I think you're wondering what can you do for your Babesia using antimalarials, okay? So yes, you've had reactions to Plaquenil. Yes, you've had to Mepron. That means you also should not use another one called Malarone. Okay, Malarone has the same active ingredient. One of the Mepron is the active ingredient. Mepron is something called atovaquone. Malarone is a mixture of atovaquone and a quinine derivative called proquenil. Plaquenil is also a quinine derivative. if you've had this bad reaction on Plaquenil and Nepron, don't go on Malarone. It's kind of a mix of both of those, okay? Indirectly, it's a mix of both of those. All right, then, but there are many other things you can use, all right? If you're wanting to go herbal, another step you might take is the herb called Cryptolepis. That's Cryptolepis, 5 milliliters 3 times a day. You have to buy it from an online site called Woodland Essence, all right? That treatment works about 75 to 80% of the time. Another herbal option you could look at is something called artemisinin. Although if you got your Babesia on the east coast of the United States, artemisinin seems not to be working quite as well. Artemisinin comes as a 100 milligram pill. I have people start at 3 of those, so 300 milligrams, 3 times a day. You take for 3 days in a row, and then you're off for 11 days. If that doesn't knock you down too badly, the next round you go up to 400 milligrams 3 times a day for 3 days on, 11 days off. And if that doesn't knock you down too badly, you go up to 500 milligrams 3 times a day for 3 days on, 11 days off, okay? All right, I call the herbs I put in my tier 2 treatment category. They work about 75 to 80% of the time. The prescription protocols tend to work about 80 to 85% of the time. I call those the tier 1 treatments. Also in tier 1 would be something called Lariam and another drug called Coartem. Those are possibilities for you too, okay? What I want you to know, just because you had these reactions on Plaquenil Mepron does not mean you will have them on the other treatment options, all right? To read more about these other treatment options so that you can consider the best way to go for yourself, let me do a quick screen share here. You want to take a look at the article I have found in the Treatline book. Look under the chapters, look under infection treatment plans, take a look at this article called Kills Babesia, a brief guide. And I talk about you need to boost the immune system, all right? And then I talk about using combinations. And in tier 1 is atovaquone combinations. That's the Mepron, okay? And the atovaquone proconil, that's the Malarone, all right? You're not going to be able to do those. But I have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 treatments. Read through this whole article. I tell you exactly the other options that you might have, okay? All right, let me go back here. All right, Karen, good luck to you. And keep that enthusiasm too. All right. Hello, Marnie. Let's see. Thank you for your kind services. You're welcome. I have been treated for Lyme 3 years ago. Currently, I have pain under my arm that has resulted in nerve and muscle pain. I have had lymph drainage massages with minimal success. Do you have suggestions how to resolve the pain and what could be causing it? Boy, Marnie, I need to know many more things to help answer. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to answer it because I need to know more about what the quality of the pain is. Does it come and go? To figure out whether this is lymph node, whether it's nerve pain, or whether it's muscle pain. And then that determines on what I might do for you. So it's hard for me to answer this in this kind of a setting, unfortunately. You might take a look at my one-to-one consult if you want a more direct opinion. But unfortunately, this is one of those things that's going to be hard for me to figure out in this way. All right. Thank you. Good luck to you. Hello, Arlene. Let's see. I've got Lyme co-infections plus HHV6 active, but despite 6 months treatment, my fatigue and lack of energy keep me stuck in bed. I've had IV ceftriaxone, then oral doxy plus rifampicin. I'm gluten, sugar, dairy-free, on oxygen, nystatin, and natural supplements. What could reduce this fatigue, please? All right. So, Arlene, really to give you the most thorough answer, there's many things that could be going on here. Bone-drenching fatigue that's not lifting has me wondering about Babesia as a possibility. I would want to make sure you don't have that, and I would want to make sure you don't have that based on your symptoms, all right? So in the Treat Lyme book, take a look at the article I have called How to Diagnose Babesia, all right? You'll find it in the chapter called How to Diagnose, all right? So take a look at that. I tell you how to diagnose Babesia. You don't have to rely on testing. It's more based on symptoms, all right? Second thing to consider, when I've got somebody with really low energy that is not improving with antibiotics, by 6 months, I'm going to want to do some repair of mitochondria function. So mitochondria are the energy factories found in every one of our cells, all right? And the covering on the mitochondria can get injured when somebody has Lyme disease. So you want to take a look. I've got a whole article about how to fix mitochondria. I'll show you that in a minute. The other thing you want to do is make sure that you've done some support for your adrenal function. And to do that, you want to be on ashwagandha, 400 milligrams, 2 pills twice a day. Okay, so again, mainly because of time here, I'm not laying out everything, but there you can read. You can read about how to do these in the Treat Lyme book. Let me show you what you want to look at. All right. So in the Treat Lyme book, the one thing you want to look at is to figure out if you might have babesia, which is giving you that drenching fatigue. What I would tell you is the treatment that you outlined is not something that would wind up taking care of it, okay? So look under my tab called How to Diagnose, and to figure out if you might have babesia, take a look at this article called How to Diagnose Babesia, okay? All right. In terms of other ideas that I have for energy, look under the chapters tab here, come over to the energy and fatigue, and take a look at what I've written about powering. It's called Power Up, Energy and Mitochondria. This is the article where I describe all the things you want to do to help improve mitochondria function. I usually will start doing that at about 6 months in. And then there are some basic steps like getting sleep, making sure your adrenals and your thyroid are working, that you'll find in this article called Fix Fatigue, Boost Your Energy, the basic steps, okay? All right, let me go back here. All right, now Arlene, there's a lot, there may be more things to do. If you're not really getting any better, I'd love to help give you opinion. You might want to consider also doing one of my online consults, okay? That's the one-to-one consult I showed you earlier, everyone here in the webinar tonight, how to go ahead and access that. All right? All right. Thank you for that question. Good luck to you, Arlene. All right. Let's see here. See, going to cardiologist for clearance for cataract surgery, any specific tests I should ask for being I know irregular beats are from Lyme. So no, there isn't anything special that the cardiologist should do because you do or do not have Lyme. There's basic steps that they need to follow just to give you cardiac clearance, okay? So no, there isn't anything special that I would have done. And good luck with your surgery too. Let's see. Hello, Susan. Thank you for all your knowledge and support. Can you talk a little on Lyme carditis? It seems there is little knowledge amongst the doctors and cardiologists in Canada don't seem to know much. Okay. So carditis means inflammation of the heart muscle, right? And if you have carditis, it should show up as some changes. That's looking pretty good. It should, hold on here a minute. It should show up as changes on the EKG where they could see, based on how the EKG looks, whether you have inflammation, all right? And so they should be able to figure it out. Now, whether they agree that Lyme is causing it is a different issue. How do you treat Lyme carditis? Well, you kill Lyme, all right? You got to treat the Lyme. In addition, you want to get the inflammation down, and so you want to be on curcumin is the way to get that inflammation down, all right? So those are just some thoughts that I have, all right? And I've talked about curcumin a number of times tonight as well, too. All right. Good luck to you, Susan. Hello, Catherine. Let's see. What's your view on epigenetics in late-stage Lyme, and how does one test this? Would 23andMe help? If so, how? I'm waiting for 23andMe results but my doctor says they show genetics, not which genes have become expressed. Yeah, I would agree with that. I haven't really seen how to incorporate epigenetics yet into Lyme treatment, basically. All right. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to be a good source for you on this one. Hello, Marie Eve. Let's see. SIBO. I have Lyme and suspect SIBO and or leaky gut. Do you use the breath test for SIBO? And how do you treat SIBO? I heard in treating SIBO, we should not use probiotics produced in lactic acid, but Saccharomyces boulardii. Is this right? Yeah. So SIBO stands for small intestine bowel overgrowth, everyone. Essentially what happens is bacteria from the large intestines work through the valve that separates the small intestines from the large intestines, called the ileocecal valve. They work backwards up into the small intestines, okay? And those are the same ones that, so anyhow, that's what happens, all right? Should you not be on probiotics if you're having the problem? Yeah, probably not be on them. Saccharomyces boulardii could be good. There are the main prescription treatment approach, which is what I find to be successful, is something called rifaximin. That's RIF, AXIMIN. Rifaximin is a prescription medicine that you take, and you do it, I think, for about 7 to 10 days. I always have to look it up when I do this, all right? Before I look to see if somebody has SIBO by doing the breath test that you mentioned, though, I always make sure to get yeast taken care of, because yeast can look like SIBO, all right? So those are just some thoughts I have on that. Good luck to you, Marie. Hello, Kate. Wondering if you have any thoughts about GCMAF or updates on LDA treatment. Also, any thoughts on treatment clinics like Spinagle in Florida or in Vita? Thanks for being a trusted resource for all Lyme's. All right, so GCMAF, everyone, stands for GC macrophage activating factor. So there is a type of white blood cell called a macrophage that treats virus infections and also can treat cancer. Chronic virus infections, when you have virus infections in you that are active, they release an enzyme that breaks off the GC from the GCMAF. They break off a sugar group, actually, from the GCMAF, making it so it will not turn on this type of white blood cell that fights viruses called macrophages, okay? And so if you have very elevated, a very elevated enzyme called nagalase, nagalase is the enzyme that breaks off the sugar group from the GCMAF. If you have very high nagalase levels, it can be an indication that you have an active chronic virus infection, all right? Other ways that providers will look to see if you might have active chronic viruses is to measure antibodies against those viruses, like IgG antibody levels against human herpes virus type 6 or against Epstein-Barr virus. The trouble with measuring those antibody levels, though, is that they may not always be accurate, because once you develop those antibodies, you're going to keep making them, even when your immune system has those viruses under control. And most of these viruses that we focus on, like human herpes virus type 6, cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr virus, these are common viruses even in healthy people that, if their immune system is working correctly, keeps them under control and they don't bother them, all right? So if we get back elevated antibody levels, like many of my colleagues test for, and they're elevated, they sometimes will take that as a clue that maybe the viruses have gotten active, but we don't have great science that proves that is so. So what I have taken to doing these days is to do this test called a nagalase. And a nagalase, again, is the enzyme made by these viruses if they're in excess. And if the nagalase comes back at 1.8 or higher, I have found benefit for treating chronic viruses, all right? Now, one way to treat for those chronic viruses is to do injections or breathing treatments of GCMAF, all right? The problem is GCMAF is very controversial and has been, you have to get out of Europe, and has become blocked by the authorities there and now is under tight scrutiny here in the States by the FDA. And because of all the risk involved, I'm just not doing it anymore. I don't know if you can even get it anymore right now. Actually, it becomes available and then not available because the FDA has been stopping it at the border. All right. So can it work? Yeah, I've seen it help a number of my patients. Can you get it anymore? It's extremely hard to get into the country, even if you can even order it out of Europe anymore. And I actually haven't done it for quite a while. The LDI treatments, I have become disenfranchised with. I do think that occasionally they help a person, but I'm seeing them cause more problems than what it's worth in the majority. And generally, I am not doing them anymore. Okay. That doesn't mean some people don't get benefit from them, but I'm just not doing them anymore. All right. About Spinagal and Envita, these are clinics that you can go to where you stay for maybe a month, maybe 2 months. They do a lot of IV nutrient support, as well as detox work, as well as IV antibiotics and or IV hydrogen peroxide, IV ozone, various things. I think they can help get you started on a treatment. The trouble is when you go to these places and then you go back home, you often get worse because no one follows you once you get back to where you are, and you still need to be on treatment. Their 1 or 2 months of treating you intensively is not going to cure your Lyme. You still need to do all the other work that you would do even if you didn't go to those clinics, okay? So those are my thoughts on that, all right? So anyhow, Kate, I hope that gives you some insight there. Good luck to you. All right, let's see here. And this is from Sandra. Let's see. Thank you so much, Dr. Ross. You're welcome. I had Lyme for 8 months before diagnosis. I took ampicillin for 8 months. I'm having more neurologic symptoms, tingling, pressure, and head, burning pain under feet. Should I go back on an antibiotic? Someone said Septin is good for neurological Lyme. Please help. They are something here. I think there's a second part to your question. Well, if there is a second part to your question, I'm not seeing it here, Sandra. So let me just repost that. So Sandra, I think you probably have had inadequate treatment. You need to find a Lyme literate medical doctor who's willing to work with at least 2 prescription medicines with you at the same time, maybe even 3, all right? And the problem with your treatment you had so far is the ampicillin you took would only work on 1 of 3 forms of the Lyme germ. All right, so there's 3 forms. There's something called spirochete, that's the corkscrew-looking thing. There's also a form of Lyme that lives inside of cells called intracellular Lyme. There's a microscopic cyst form of the germ too. The ampicillin would probably treat spirochete only. There's some petri dish experiments that suggest maybe it can treat the cyst, although it doesn't make any sense how it would do that. But you've done nothing for sure about intracellular Lyme. So you need to work with somebody who can help treat all 3 forms of the germ, okay? All right. All right, everyone, that is it for tonight. I'm doing these webinars at the end of a day of patient care, so I'm about ready to go home myself. I know that my 2 dogs, who usually are bouncing around behind me here, are ready to go too. Well, Thor's over there sleeping right now. I'm sure that the minute I click off here, he's going to be ready to go out for his night walk too. Tomorrow morning, you will get an email from me that will have a link to the webinar recording. It'll tell you how to access that. And then it will also have the sign up for the next series of webinars, okay? Now, I'm going to take next week off. I will not do a webinar next Wednesday, but then we'll do 3. I believe I will be doing 3 in a row. I have to look at my calendar. There's a Wednesday I may be gone towards the end of the month. I have to see. We're either going to do 2 or 3 webinars in February. You'll find that out tomorrow when I send out the email. I have to look at my calendar a little bit more carefully, all right? So I look forward to getting back to help you then. Everyone, here in a second, I'm going to take you over to the Treat Lyme book. As you know, I've showed you it many times tonight because it has most of the information you need to treat Lyme. Please subscribe. You'll get many good pieces of information out of it that can change your treatment, that give you ideas that you can take to your doctor, or even ideas that you can go ahead and implement on your own, all right? Also, take a look at my successful treatment recipe. That is, follow all of those steps, the key steps. That's what you need to do to support your immune system to get well too, all right? So if you subscribe, I appreciate it. Thank you in advance. It helps support the work that I'm doing here. I look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks, all right? Good night, everyone.